What we don't realize as we are attacking a faith which perhaps we're not aware of its origins and its teachings, that on one level we are attacking ourselves, our own spirit, our own understanding, though it may have been in a different language, from a different scripture, in the mouth of a different prophet. I recall, therefore, the words again of Christ in the Bible when he said regarding a woman who was being stoned, about to be stoned, in fact, for committing sexual misconduct. And he stopped those who were attempting to stone her and said to them, "Ye who is without sin, let him cast the first stone." At that point, all those who were standing around prepared to throw the stones, they dropped their stones and walked away, realizing in their own humanity, all of them had faults and flaws and shortcomings. And so when I begin to speak to you today about Islam, I'm not just speaking on this platform about the religion of Islam. I'm speaking about religion in general. For who sitting in this audience today, whether you are Muslim, Christian, Jew, Hindu, Buddhist, who can come here today and stand before this audience and say, my faith, my people who have been in the history of my faith have always been holy and pure and have never been the sources of misconduct and conflict and bloodshed and disorder on this earth. We are free of that, therefore we point to you saying we are allowed to cast stones upon your religion because our faith, our religion, is completely free of all such accusations, allegations, and insinuations as are being heaped upon others. For that I share with you the words of Karen Armstrong. You may have heard her name. She is an ex-nun, now has written many books on different aspects of theology, history of God, and also wrote a biography of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. And recently, after the statements of Pope Benedict in Germany, she offered a very compelling commentary on her understanding as a Christian herself, as a woman who's done much comparative study, as to what is the reality of this statement and its impact on the relations between people in this world. She starts out by sharing a very interesting piece of history. She said, quote, in the 12th century, Peter, the Venerable, Abbot of Cluny, initiated a dialogue with the Islamic world. Quote, I approach you not with arms, but with words, he wrote to the Muslims whom he imagined reading his book. Yet his treatise was entitled, imagine this title, this is the beginning of your dialogue and discussion with the so-called Muslims of that time. The book was entitled, Summary of the Whole Heresy of the Diabolical Sect of the Saracens. Now, I'm sure that's going to win a lot of hearts over, a lot of minds to an open dialogue and communication. She goes on and says that words failed Peter when he contemplated the, quote, bestial cruelty, unquote, of Islam, which he claimed had established itself by the sword. Was Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, a true prophet? I shall be worse than a donkey if I agree, he expostulated. Worse than cattle if I assent. Now, of course, you say this is many centuries ago, 12th century, and we have outgrown that. But what she then goes on and says in this same commentary is, again, quoting from her words, Peter was writing at the time of the Crusades. Even when Christians were trying to be fair, their entrenched loathing of Islam made it impossible for them to approach it objectively. For Peter, Islam was so self-evidently evil that it did not seem to occur to him that the Muslims he approached with such, quote, love, unquote, might be challenged by his remarks. This medieval cast of mind is still alive and well. Now, unlike the many wonderful words of compassion and understanding shared today on this podium by members of the clergy and members of the community, I think we should realize, again, the world we live in, and I think we do. I also came here on an airplane from St. Louis, Missouri, and when I fly these days, I'm always aware of my surroundings. The fact that you have to be searching the airport is not what I'm referring to. The fact that I don't try to hide my faith. I don't attempt to go into a hole and let the world pass me by and hope for better days and then come out and join in the community of humankind. I wear my cap. I show myself who I am. I don't shave off anything to give me a sense of assimilation. I be what I am. That's what I am. I can only be that. But I'm aware also that when you fly nowadays, most Americans are afraid when they see someone looking like a Muslim. Whether you're a man or woman, they want to stop the plane and say, please let him off. And we've seen recently, this past year alone, it actually happened. People talking on their cell phone, a knockless conversation, someone hears something, and all of a sudden the red flag goes up. These could be potential terrorists. Get them off of my plane. So when I enter the plane, and I'm the only one wearing such garments, I see all the eyes kind of shifting down and up, and I know what they're looking at. They're not impressed with my height. They're looking at who this person is. And they're wondering, because this is the day and age we still have within our mind embedded so many misperceptions and misunderstandings about this faith that, of course, we're going to have knee-jerk reflexes. Karen Armstrong goes on and says about this, our Islamophobia dates back to the time of the Crusades and is entwined with our chronic anti-Semitism. Some of the first Crusaders began their journey to the Holy Land by massacring the Jewish community along the Rhine Valley. The Crusaders ended their campaign in 1099 by slaughtering some 30,000 Muslims and Jews in Jerusalem. It is always difficult to forgive people we know we have wronged. Very compelling comment, again. Jesus had told his followers to love their enemies, not to exterminate them. It was when the Christians of Europe were fighting brutally holy wars against the Muslims in the Middle East that Islam first became known in the West as the religion of the sword. At this time, when the popes were trying to impose celibacy on the reluctant clergy, and they're still somewhat reluctant in case you haven't heard, Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, was portrayed by the scholar monks of Europe as a lecher, and Islam condemned with ill-conceived envy as a faith that encouraged Muslims to indulge their basest sexual instincts. At a time when European social order was deeply hierarchical, despite the egalitarian message of the gospel, Islam was condemned for giving too much respect to women and other menials. This is her conclusion, and I'm sure that already has been an earful and much food for thought, but she brings it to a conclusion and says, we simply cannot afford this type of bigotry. We cannot afford this type of bigotry. The trouble is that too many people in the Western world unconsciously share this prejudice.